Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Grady, and I'd like to call this meeting in order. This is the Inland Wetlands Commission of Monroe. It is May the 23rd, and it is currently, what does it say, 7:05. First order of business, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I'd like to introduce the members of the commission present here tonight. First, we have Commissioner Ross Mastroraco. Again, I'm Jason Grady. To my left is Jeff Shamus, who is a certified ecologist, professional wetland scientist, and a certified soil scientist. He is our vice chair. To his left is Lois Spence, our secretary. To her left is Donna Straczynski, who is the Inland and Wetlands Commission and Land Use Coordinator for the town of Monroe. Next is Scott Schatzeline, who's a licensed professional engineer, land use director, town engineer, and our Inland and Wetlands agent. And as always, Rebecca Wood, our recording secretary. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. Before we start, I'll read our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetlands Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearing and other applications. Protocol for public hearing is to have an applicant make a representation or presentation to the commission, during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. The commission will then review town, staff, and other independent comments. Excuse me. The meeting will then be opened up for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or the commission. After any and all comments, pro, in the opposition, or of a general nature are made, the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new material is entered in as evidence or testimony during their response. Please keep any and all comments, pro and con, specific to inland and wetlands related matters. Other applications that do not involve public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comment allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Our agenda is up here in green, should anybody want it. There was a public hearing, so I don't read that part. Is there any changes to the agenda tonight?
Believe it or not, there's only one.
Only one?
Wow. Only one, and it's under item number 5, application hearing determinations. We have one new application that we need to review for 205 Monroe Turnpike. It's IWC 2018-07.
Actually, I have another one too. I didn't tell her about it. Section 12, general discussion under other. I have just a general question about a potential, an application that's going to be coming in terms of the process to be used in the application.
Excellent.
I didn't really want to give an address because it's more generic.
Okay. Okay, so next on our agenda is a period of time reserved for public participation. This is for public participation of a general nature, not anything specific to this agenda, but specific to inland wetlands matters. Seeing none, moving right along. Subdivision report and recommendations to P&Z Commission, there are none. Regulated activities. We have 2 regular meetings scheduled for tonight, which include no public comment. The first is IWC 2018-04-R 8 Maple Drive, Rizzio, site development and remediation to address unpermitted parking area and clearing within 150 feet of a river. This is continued from our April 11th meeting.
Chairman, members of the commission, I'm Raymond Rizzio, happy to be before you tonight.
Nice to see you, sir.
Good. I think I talked with Scott. We've worked hard over the last few months with staff trying to come up with a remediation plan, which we have. Last thing that was requested by the town engineer was a landscape plan, a full landscape plan. We have to open the hearing tonight because there's 65 days is required. But we will have the full landscape plan by the end of the week. We'll get it to Scott to have it reviewed before the next meeting, and rather than do two full presentations for you. I would like to open it and request that we continue this matter to the next meeting versus going through a dog and pony show twice. It really comes down to, further from the landscape plan is the buffering and all of the issues that will help protect the wetlands, and that probably at this point is most imperative because we got an agreement as to rain garden, drainage, removal of millings. All that plan has evolved in working with staff, and the last piece of the puzzle, which finishes off this site, is the landscape plan. We'll have that to Scott by beginning of the week, and he'll have it reviewed, and we'll make hopefully a full and quick presentation for you and get this matter off your docket at the next meeting. For that reason, I respectfully request that this matter be open and continue, hold the public hearing open until the next meeting.
Okay, so we will open the meeting. Meeting.
It's just a regular
Just
meeting, it's not a
regular
public hearing.
As required, so that starts our clock, correct?
Well, the clock has started. As clarification, the clock starts when because it's a regular hearing, it goes from the submission date, and I did email Chris the deadline dates, but you're well within the
Yes.
timeframe.
It's a beautiful night.
Does anybody have any comment? Scott, any comment?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. I guess we don't have, I will say that we as a commission are anxious to put this off of our agenda once and for all.
Yes.
So,
I promise you the next meeting, I'm true to my word, I will be in it.
yes, sir, and we appreciate you coming, we appreciate you opening and everything up, and we do, but I will say for the record that we'd really like this to be completed.
This will be we will have a complete meeting, there will be no reason for delay, and we'll have everything Scott reviewed, so hopefully it'll be
Okay,
nice, clean.
as long as we're on the same page, there's no Florida chips planned for our next meeting.
Might not be the
and-
smartest, but I get messages loud and clear.
Thank you so much. So our next meeting is what date?
That would be June,
13.
yes.
June 13th. Thank you, sir.
Great, we'll see you on the 13th.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, but that was done. If only they would all go so fast.
Yeah. All right, next on the agenda, IWC 2018-05-R, 4 Maple Drive, O'Keefe. Removal of previously placed millings and proposed construction of an asphalt driveway with grass swale and plunge pool.
Bill Carbone, Yorker Associates, and professional engineer. Also with me is Patrick O'Keefe, the owner of the subject property. When last we were here, there was a discussion as to the size of the driveway and whether it was going to be 24 or 16 or 12. And we had expressed our desire to increase the use of this property. So he wants to build a 10,000 square foot building, and we didn't want to put a lot of large, expensive vegetation at this time if they're going to be without building. What we've prepared is this plan, which is a very rough schematic of what the proposed building would look like. Again, this is the existing building, the shed, the pavement goes to this point. Last time we were here, we continued the driveway from here over to the existing road on the Kimball property. What we're proposing to do is put in a 10,000 square foot building, required parking here, and additional parking here that meets the requirements of all but 3 of the buildings. I think it's phase 1.
Oh,
What do you,
Sorry.
you want me to do it? Okay.
And leave the other one over.
Okay.
So this is the phase 1, which would be a driveway following the location as dictated by the building. What we'll propose doing is we won't do the parking this time, it's not required, that's only part of with the second building. We will build this driveway and it will be used in final. To the extent of, this will be only the first course, what we're proposing on doing is sheet flowing the runoff from the road into this water quality basin here. And then the rest of it will reverse the pitch and put it into a water quality basin here. The preliminary indications that I've done for detention shows that by converting this area from the 1984 conditions, this was primarily a dirt driveway, a rock outcrops, and very little what we will be putting in here, of course, is grass. That will, for the first phase, the detention is not a problem. So again, these will be water quality basins. Again, the millings that we're putting here will be removed, and the exposed area will be low and seeded. There will be no parking, outdoor storage will incur in this area. We will put a split rail fence along the northern side of this to prevent anybody from inadvertently going onto the grassed area. Now, what this is obviously not complete, but we had Cynthia Rabinowitz come up with a list of the wetlands buffer, and these are the plants that she is proposing to put in there. We will be back at the next meeting to finalize this plan, to have these cited on the wetlands buffer, the amount to rain gardens will be properly planted, and a finalized plan. Now, what we will also do is, this again is the phase one plan. What you had said at the last meeting is if this building is not under proposal or construction, or whether within 3 to 5 years, we wanted more plantings in here, particularly along the split rail fence. So to this area up in here, we will add the 5-year landscaping plan. Again, this is something we do not expect to be built, planted, but we will be coming in with the building, and when we come in with the building, obviously that will have its own total landscaping plan. So again, we're not finished now, we have not begun the soils testing required or completed the other stuff for the building. But what we have come in with is a plan that will be a 3- and 5-year planting plan for the site. What you're seeing here is the initial planting. Is there any question?
The driveway from the asphalt to that area there, what's that material going to be?
This,
Yeah.
it'll be a regular structural section. It'll have most likely a bank on gravel bottom to it, and then one course of pavement. Because as I said, this is pitched this way to here and pitched that way to there. This basin will be under the parking lot, so we'll have to get detention for the building. So this would be not utilized for water quality. So we will only put the one course in. When we come in with the final plan, we will level this to make the drainage work to get into the detention system and so on. But this will be quite sufficient for the needs. There's not that much traffic on it.
Sorry, could you just take a step back again? You said that for this phase, that sediment basin isn't going to be used yet?
This one? No, these two basins will be used with the construction of this driveway.
Okay.
They are water quality basins.
Okay.
More than likely rain gardens or thereabouts. We will pitch from this driveway from here to here into this one. and then from here to here into that one. There is an outlet pipe that'll come out here and join the riprap at the end of, there's an existing 30-inch pipe coming through here, so we'll use that energy dissipator there to take the flow from the water quality basin.
What kind of vehicles would be using this driveway?
Well, primarily, it's going to be the employees of the facility.
Which is,
This, but
which is,
O'Keefe controls. This
right,
one.
but the new building, is that what you're saying? That's gonna be the same, for the same use?
Yes,
Okay.
this is Route 25, this is Maple Drive. If you're familiar with it, you know the hazards of that intersection.
Mhm.
So what they want to do, and kind of are doing now, is come out here, come over to Victoria Drive, and come up to the light, which
Mhm.
is obviously much safer. And that's the initial purpose of the driveway.
So they would be doing that right away,
As we
as
put
soon as you
in-
use it?
Yeah,
I mean, as soon as you put
phase
it in.
one, yes.
Okay.
So,
Now,
sorry, I just have to ask this question. And I think I know the answer, but because of our charge of avoidance minimization and then mitigation, your driveway is right up against the wetlands and you have a lot of area upland, north essentially of that. What is your plan for that and why can't you move the driveway?
well, again, what we want to do is not waste the grading and the efforts in this thing. This is our long-range plan to build a building, which is why Mr. O'Keefe bought the property, is to put in this 10,000 square foot manufacturing facility and office space here. The driveway on phase one is identical to this. So what we want to do is put this in and use it in the long term.
Okay, in the long term, what's your vision for stormwater management, given that that water quality pond is gone? And basically, the entire site is almost going to be, developed to the point where you're looking at probably subsurface?
And it's going to have to be subsurface galleries in 1 or 2 different locations with mechanical treatment devices to meet the water quality flow. With this site and the amount of use of it, that's the only way we can go with this.
So that's the long-range plan,
This is,
right?
yes.
Which may or may not happen. It might happen, a year from now, or 10 years, or it may never happen. What we're looking at is what you want to disturb and impact today. And that driveway, when you go in to do your other plan, can be moved at that point as part of your next phase plan to maybe in this location. But I don't know why we need to have it right up against the wetland now when it doesn't. Is
It's
it-
reasonable to build it only once and not build it and then rip it out and build something very
Well, you're going to
similar.
put a huge building on there later. There's going to be a lot of earthwork, correct?
Not particularly, I mean,
A lot of subsurface, you're going to be doing a lot of digging. I mean,
yes,
it's a,
yes, but there-
so
it's a
I still
relatively level
don't.
site with a flat building on it, so.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around allowing, or understanding why we should, consider a development, or the impact to the upland review area right up against the wetlands when we don't have to today. We don't know when that future phase is gonna happen. And,
Do we still have the pictures of the current, was it the last meeting that we looked at, or the meeting before that we looked at the current condition of those pictures? The
You don't-
photographs,
I,
The original pictures showing,
It's all,
what it looks like now?
yeah, okay, so, was that
Can we
on-
look at
Yeah.
pictures of where
Right there.
that rock wall is and where the millings are?
yeah, I had those pictures right there on my flash.
Oh, you had them,
I
okay.
don't.
Oh, we have, were there pictures with this? Let's see. Yeah, there's images.
There's no ground level, but
could look at the aerial.
That is that one right there.
So there's your answer.
Driveway from the other,
That's where the driveway's going.
that's where the driveway's gonna start.
It's already
It's already there.
This is all millings that have been placed in there that
Still
we're
could be-
proposing.
Right.
Well, that's the violation, that
Right.
the millings were placed there, yeah.
It's a violation, right?
Right.
Right, well, that's
So
what
keep
we're here
scrolling
trying
down.
to remediate.
When did you buy the property? Was it, okay.
This is the aerial view of the site. This is the existing building, this is the shed that I referred to. And as you can see, this entire site is devoid of anything except for millings in this area. This is the driveway that they are using now that we are trying to remediate and bring it down in the air. This is the wetland area in here. This is a boulder retaining wall in here. On the downhill side of the boulders, which I have photographs, this is all multiflora roads, all through here and into the wetland. So there's,
How much are you moving that the new proposed driveway of your phase one project from that milling driveway right there? None at all, right?
no, we are. It is going to come down here more, I would say, half the driveway width is going to be closer to the wetlands than what exists there now.
And how much wider than what
That-
we're seeing there? Approximately, I know you.
Well, it's going to be a 24-foot. This is 24 in this area, so what's that, 20, 18?
Yeah, okay.
But it's kind of hard to tell where it is.
Understood, yeah.
You know, you go from pavement to millings.
Right.
Yes, but it will be moved to the south a little.
Closer to that wetland.
Right.
When was the violation issued?
Let's see. Let's see.
2014? IWV 2014-01?
Yes, yep.
So probably January-ish, it's the first one, maybe?
Yeah.
So it goes back a ways.
4 years.
Yeah. Well, we started out this thing, to bring you up to speed, Jeff.
No, I remember some of the discussions we've had
Okay,
here the last,
yeah. So it's always been a discussion about, well, what's the future gonna bring, kind of thing, and how to address this that would be in a fashion that would possibly suit the owner's needs in addition to remediating the violation.
Mhm.
The wetlands that are shown on that one are not the current wetlands. They were reflagged this year by Cynthia Rebecca.
I do remember that. Is that the plans that we have, November 14th, 17th? No?
If it was ours, that has the current wetlands flagging on it, but
This is
Yeah,
3/23.
let's
different
see this one.
driveway.
No, no, November 17 may not be in here.
No, that's okay.
Oh, we need that.
Yeah, so the plans you have were the plans that they came in the last time you met.
Here's the one.
Yeah,
Here's
this-
do you have this one received April 6, 2018?
Did it come in at the meeting that I wasn't here at?
Probably, here, take a look.
Well, I think this is it.
Where's that one you've been looking at?
Uh,
This one's April 6, 18, that's the one in the bottom.
The one on the bottom?
This one that you
Oh,
were just looking
which
at
one,
before.
what's the date of that one?
That's the newest.
The
This
newest?
was the previous one.
Okay.
Right, okay, well. So you're saying okay, oh, no, this is the one, because it's got both lines on it.
Okay.
So when the first delineation was done, is that when the first violation occurred?
I don't know the date of that first
do you know if you sourced it
We have,
on the
let's
plans?
see, I saw something having to do with her
I thought
report.
the initial wetland depiction was a reference back to an earlier, what,
An earlier permit that we.
oh, yeah, an earlier permit that was done. They just, they did not flag it. They took it off of earlier plans.
Right, I'm just looking to see if they sourced it in the notes of where that came
Yeah, I
from.
thought
They
they
were
did.
done by the local client.
That doesn't say. It's not on the plans.
January, conditional approval inland wetlands dated January 30th, 2003.
At that time, there was a permit granted for this site and work was done. That retaining wall, older wall was constructed. That's why there's a one of the reasons there is a difference between the two wetlands line, because it was work done, it was permitted by the commission.
Mm-hmm.
A second permit was granted to Solely Engineering for John Kimball for work done in this area right in here. This was Victoria Drive. This was a driveway that was constructed with access to O'Keefe's property and to Rizzio's property, which was the hearing before.
Yeah, and you should clarify that this piece of road here was built in violation, and there was a violation that was processed by the commission, where you allowed him to keep the paved driveway. He had to do a little bit of work over here, I guess, for a swale, which I'm not quite sure if it was even done. And then there was a good amount of work over in here, removing an old slab foundation and pulling fill out and restoring wetlands, which has not been completed. He pulled the slab out, he did some of the work, and you just recently gave him more time to do the plantings.
This was not by us, this was done by.
Yep, understood.
But anyhow, it is work that was done on or near our property. It was work here, this was installed here.
Okay.
So, you told me once, Mr. Howard.
You want to go back to your plan?
Well, so again, what we were doing and what we're not finished doing is come up with the two-phase landscaping plan that the commission wanted. This is the general idea of what we're going to do. This is, at most likely, as large as we can make it. This one will be sized according to what it needs. And then Cynthia will come in and plant the landscape buffer, plant the water quality basin here and here, and we'll put the split rail fence in. Of course, we have
You're in the Zoom mode, that's why. Yeah, there you go.
these two things for planting grass seeds in here. Now, that's the short term, that's phase one. Phase two would be if the building is not built and it's more than 3 or 5 years, whichever, we will propose additional plantings in this area to be done at that time, at the end of whatever time period the commission feels.
Can you put phase 2 back up there again, please?
I don't know.
Here, let me take it.
He is honest.
You meant phase one back.
No, I just needed to see this one.
Is Cynthia also looking at, as you had mentioned, behind the rock wall, there's a lot of invasives, a method of enhancing, and likely you could potentially attribute those invasives to have occurred because of the encroachment to the edge. allowing more sunlight, allowing other disturbed opportunist species to come in, is she gonna look at some type of enhancement to the wetland itself along that edge to remove the invasives?
No.
Put a plan together to do anything like that?
No.
Okay.
When the plan was proposed in 2003, we had an entire planting plan for this area in here. It was installed and it has been taken over from invasive species. My guess is not because of the disturbances done, it's done by all the surrounding vegetation, which is filled with the same plants. In this area, there is still, and again, I wish I had a photo put out, a tree store, there is an over canopy in there. And now granted, it's open to the sun from the north, but the tree canopy did not stop the invasives.
Was there a monitoring program after the planting to monitor the plantings, cut and treat any invasives to give the native species a chance?
I don't believe so. In 2003, that wasn't part of the program yet.
Right.
So, no, would be my guess. I don't have it here, but.
You may remember, there was an application in front of P&Z and in Wetlands, about that same time, where there was compensatory wetlands installed in that area. Do you remember where that was?
No, Wayne Jacobson from our office did that.
I knew your office did it,
Yeah.
I remember
because
that
I
from the
remember them
record. It was-
there was
it
a
over in
trade.
here.
So that's the same area that Ed's talking about.
No. Well, I don't believe so. I mean, the planting plan that we had was following this water course that comes up in here on either side. I believe the one Jeff is talking about is this area.
I know what Jeff's talking about.
Okay.
I was curious because we were just talking about the invasives and you said that area was taken over with invasives. But I believe that was the area that had been proposed and it was part of a trade.
No, we did as a result. So the history in this was, we bought that property from Kimball with basically three intents. One is we had an immediate need for expanded parking, which we did, was, put through this committee of planning and zoning. And you had a shot of that, I don't think you had it, perhaps somebody else did, that showed that addition of parking. And in there was, on this property, many years ago, long before we even arrived in Monroe, there was a house that was built on there. And if you go back to that other slide, it'll show you what I believe was the driveway from Route 25 down to this house.
Oops. Where'd it go?
No, you're right, your toolbar is just on the top
You
instead of
just
the
made it
bottom
on
right
the-
now.
God, how did that happen?
There was one that you had that was more of a schematic.
The one that
Oh,
was
you're
marked
talking
up.
about the top
Yeah,
one.
it was very colorful.
Oh, let's hope
Yeah, okay, so right there, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, below where your pointer is now, that is the area that we added our parking, okay?
Whoa. Serious vegetation.
And then that area that separated the two patches of wetland was a raised driveway bed that serviced the house, which was on what is now our property.
Looks like that's the one
This
we're
was
talking
the
about.
other corridor.
Maybe.
Yeah. Now,
I wasn't on the
my memory is
commission,
correct,
so
the
it's-
encroachment into the wetlands by our parking lot was something less than 300 square feet. Okay? We've voluntarily removed that driveway, we created another 8,000 square feet of wetland.
Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, I've seen,
The-
why do I remember a trade? If you kept something, you were able to keep something that you wanted, and
Well,
in trade, you put in, you took away the driveway and created wetland. Or wasn't really creating,
Well,
was just exposing it.
The trade was, what he's telling you is this area, the wetlands was filled over here.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
then they
So in
created this
response to that,
area as
yes.
a new wetland.
But
That's
you
what
can
I-
see that the response was a fairly generous response. You know, and we're talking about trading, less than 300 square feet for over 8,000 square feet.
Well, I remember
We
that the
generally
commissions
have
were
been
not very
doing-
pleased with the concept of having to, you needed to offer something decent, or they were not going to
Well,
allow
I
you
think
to
that
keep
probably
it, so.
is, erring toward the more aggressive side of remediation. So we're trying to be good stewards. Now, without throwing anybody under the bus, the adjoining property, there have been significant tree removals, and I'm not saying that it's, anything that's not, and that is the southern face. That's where all of the light is coming in. On our side, we're unfortunately on the northern side. We know that when we get the snows, that the parking lots just don't clear themselves out readily. So anyway, the first purpose was to add parking. We did that. And in doing so, again, we returned 8,000 square feet of land to wetland status. And I think that has helped just by my very immature observations of what I see going on in there, increased amount of wildlife and the like. The second purpose was to have room to expand. Our business, thankfully, is growing, and we want to remain in Monroe. So we have, through the help of Scott Jordan, come up with a plan that creates allows us to get to that next step of our development. And we're trying to do this in a way that we're being as fiscally responsible and also move the plan along. Right? So I've already asked that to create a plan for, a detailed plan for that building. Now the third aspect of it, which at first was unlooked for, but really has become a major addition to the people who use this property, and that is access to Victoria Drive, which has given us traffic light access to Route 25. That is huge. That is a huge improvement in human safety. And although that certainly isn't the main charge of this group, as human beings, I hope we're sensitive to a condition which has greatly improved entrance and exit from our property. That's important, because if you ever, travel that road, north or south, you know that Maple Drive can be a very dangerous road to turn onto, decelerate, and then turn right without getting clipped from somebody else. Okay? If you're accessing it from the north, which is how I come to work every day, I've nearly gotten killed in front of the firehouse several times, nearly gotten killed on turning onto Maple Drive several times, have never yet gotten killed, or even close, on the turning lane, which allows me to turn onto Victoria Drive. It's a much safer approach. And so those are the things that we're trying to do. And we're trying to be as responsible as we can. We have not encroached into wetlands, okay? Ignorantly, my fault, we put down these millings. Why did we put those down? We found that driving over the dirt from our paved driveway to the exit driveway during the winter weather caused some serious problems for some of our employees. They were getting stuck out there, calling me. I'd have to go down with the shovel, dig them out snow-wise, dig them out mud-wise, and all of that kind of stuff. We put that down with the idea that it was a reasonable surface. I see that it is used extensively throughout the town. Historically, it has been, including at town facilities and town recreational facilities. So again, I didn't pull the idea out from outer space. It was what I thought was a reasonable covering, which would allow us to still develop the land and put on a building, but also enhance, the safety of our employees. Now we're at a point where, our business is telling us that we need more room. Okay? We would like to maintain the ability to move in and out from Victoria because it has proven itself to be a much safer entrance and exit. And we want to develop a site, a plan for the building that Bill had mentioned. And their professional opinion has pointed in the direction of this plan. I think it's reasonable. Again, the intent is for us to build a building there so that we can remain in Monroe. We're not the biggest employer, but we do employ a reasonable number of people from this town.
The area behind the split rail fence, I'm guessing is after you take out the millings, it's gonna be subsoil, exposed subsoil? So they're gonna put in some grass or something?
Yeah, this site has been used several times for different purposes, going back to 1984 when topo was, so we have not done soils testing out there yet. I would imagine what they've done primarily is take the topsoil. I doubt if they've gone down to the deep horizon, so it's just bare is what it is, just no topsoil.
So the idea is to, I can't read the small letters, but it's gonna be a wetland, grass seed?
Whatever the
Yes.
appropriate covering would be.
So they'll have to spread some topsoil over the top to get something to grow.
Then we'll see it, right?
I think, I know, excuse me, I know I would be a lot more comfortable if phase 2 had been submitted as an application for development, because it's very hard to see what the future's gonna be, and for us to say, okay, well, in 3 or 5 years, who knows what's gonna happen in 3 or 5 years? And in the meantime, we have, granted you're removing the millings and planting grass, but that's not what we would normally ask for in a restoration.
No.
And so that's where I think, I know I am a little bit more uncomfortable because I would like to see something done now. And if the plan doesn't happen, then at least we're covered. If the plan does happen, plants can be moved. They can be bagged and balled and moved to a different portion of the property until you're done with your, building, that kind of thing.
Now, this plan right here with the phase 2 does not include any landscaping, any plantings or anything. That's there just to show you.
I understand
why we
that, that's
put
what
the
I'm
driveway
saying.
Where it was. But.
That's what I'm saying, there is no plan. It's all very ethereal.
Well.
And
I think that what you're seeing there is, you have to start with something. And the first
Understood.
question that I asked is, can we fit a building in here which is gonna meet the zoning requirements of the town?
I understand all that.
So the answer came back affirmative.
Right, but we see, we
So
can't
what-
hold off what we
I
need
know,
to
but-
do
but,
in waiting.
I've already authorized Dave to go to the next step of developing, the more detailed plan so that we can actually present a building plan to the town.
The purpose of the plans that we're submitting tonight, or we're not even submitting them, this is just for your review.
Concepts.
What we will submit at the next set, at the next meeting, will be a 2-phase landscaping plan. This one, and then whatever Cynthia has for this area, if the building is not built. If the building is built, that's a whole nother set of plans. But what the commission expressed at these meetings was that it's been going on for a few years, and we want to see something done. If you want something relatively soon, it's not gonna be with the building, it just takes time to design all of that, the architecture, the landscape, the septic, and everything else. So what we're trying to come up with here is a short-term plan that will take care of the violations on the site and whatever you want from the landscaping, but only if the building is not built.
I think where I was coming from, and it sounds like where Lois is coming from, is, you know, your master planning for the build-out of the site, basically. And that's something that you'll be presenting as, you know, and you may not have all your details and all your associated infrastructure designed for that, but it's an area that is part of your master plan, your phase 2 or whatever. But we have to rationalize, if we're making decisions, as to allowing an impact on something. So if you're not submitting, I think what Lo's saying is, if we don't see a concept, if we don't see, you know, phase 2 or what you're proposing, in order to keep the driveway where you are, and I know we're discussing it tonight, then just coming in with a plan and just saying that at sometime in the future this may happen, to me doesn't cut it. Because the plan that's on the record that we're approving as your argument or discussion point to say, this is the reason why the driveway has to be here. And it doesn't mean that it's okay that the driveway is there and it just gets a rubber stamp approval. It still has to be thoughtful, carefully thought out. We have to understand and accept the, you know, the mitigation proposed to offset the existing impacts to the upland review area before we, you know, take it to the next step. So I just want you to get the whole picture and understand kind of where we're coming
Right,
from.
but the objective of these hearings, when we started one, was to resolve the violations that are on the property. It was not to do a master plan for the entire site. So what this plan is trying to do is remove the violation and come up with a planting plan that can be done and meet your objectives and meet their objectives.
I think you're missing my point. For us to approve something, I think what I was saying was trying to help you, but okay, there's a violation and we need to correct it. So you're showing us this, and then you're showing us your phase 2. And so I'm saying, you know, use that phase 2 as your argument for where the driveway is. If you're going to submit plans, make sure that's part of it, and maybe it was, but I'm saying it out loud, because if it's not, and we go to the next meeting, and then I say, again, you should have, it's late, and it's just going to delay things. So just trying to help you in understanding where we're coming from.
All right, I mean, we can produce a set of plans that shows the phase 2 development, or some.
Just a concept, just
a
a,
concept
just-
that will allow some variation from beyond.
How much more beyond what you've seen so far? I don't know what the answer is,
yeah.
but I mean, what do we need? Do we need, you know?
I'm not talking about engineering drawings. I'm saying, what is your vision for that area? And that vision gets put on the plan. I can't tell you what that is. It's, like I said, it could be block, you know, squares and lines of, here's where we expect the building to be, and kind of what you had, proposed parking, something that makes some common sense of what your vision is for that, and how it relates to what you're proposing today, or, you know, next time, but.
All right,
Okay,
but the
so-
plan that's gonna get approved is something similar to that. It is not for the building.
No, not at all.
We're not asking for that.
No, understood.
So it'll be something similar to that. So what my question is.
In your plan sheets,
Right.
are you gonna have your concept plan for the build-out of the site?
If
Like a
concept,
sheet.
yes, that we will not be held, there will be tweaking to it where the doors are.
Yeah, I mean, we're not giving you a permit for that, it's just a
Right.
concept
So-
of what you,
My question is, we have proposed this. It has not been submitted to you because we wanted to obtain your comments as to, is this sufficient for mediating the violation, removing it, and providing the buffer that the commission asked for before? So what I'm looking for is a critique of this plan.
But the next time we see this plan, it's actually gonna be something that we can kind of have the meat and potatoes to dig into and understand your grading, how things are gonna flow for drainage, what other controls you're gonna have, those kinds of things, right?
For this driveway, as we're proposing here, yes, absolutely. We will have the calculations of the size of the water quality, and the final grading for the driveway, the overflow pipe here. Yes, definitely. But, the engineering I can take care of. It's more the vegetation. Is this what you are looking for?
Are you talking about the table, the plant species?
Yeah.
Pardon me, but I just got seriously confused because the site plan revised to 4/6/18 that we have in our packet is very different from what you've got up on the screen.
Yes.
Now, we need what you're actually proposing.
No, that's what he's gonna do next time. He's
So-
submitting something
We will have a
different.
set of drawings
It's gonna be different.
similar to those, similar in the amount of detail of those, but it will be for this driveway, not that one. That had several things that Scott didn't like. He didn't like the width, he didn't like the turnout, and a few things like that. So we had to revise that.
There were a number of comments that were
Right.
provided to the commission.
Right.
It's not that I don't like things. I provided some comments for their,
Scott provided some comments discussing the details of that plan.
And we discussed it,
Right. at
we
the last
discussed it
meeting.
at the last meeting.
So we came back and said, all right, they want a two-phase plan, two-phase landscape plan. So we're gonna come up with why we're putting the driveway where we are, and then the immediate landscaping, and then the landscaping that will be done on this site if the building is not proposed.
Is there gonna be qualifiers, like a time frame?
That's what the commission came up with. That was, commission's timeframe was 3 to 5 years. If action is not taken on the final building within 3 to 5 years, then the additional landscaping that would be done in this area would have to be instituted.
This commission did that?
Yes. That was the idea of the two-phase
I don't
plan.
remember any of that.
I don't know.
I think that was Ross.
I think it was actually Jim, to be honest with you, but I do remember discussing it.
No, it
Do
wasn't.
you?
Jim.
For some reason,
Yeah.
Was it?
It was?
He's not here, he gets blamed for everything.
Yeah, him. It was him
it
and
was
Clark.
Clark, it was Clark, he wasn't even here.
Might have been me.
But that was the idea, that if we put in some, if they don't do anything, more was to be done up in here. Now, if the plan's built, then obviously those plans are meaningless.
I think that was a compromise that we, as a commission, I don't remember it being me, but it might have been. Because the applicant was discussing like, well, we don't want to spend a bunch of money and put a bunch of plants in
I don't blame you.
to be ripped out for the building.
Mhm.
And the idea was tossed around about, putting plants in that they can move to some of these other spots. And I guess that we somehow led to a 3 to 5, maybe I said it.
I mean, the amount of time is really kind of.
I get you, I understand.
And you're gonna look at the driveway width and what that really needs to be?
That's 24 feet.
So the last meeting, that was the bulk of our discussion. Because
Okay.
they had a much
That was one of Scott's comments.
thinner driveway with a turnaround.
With it, yeah,
With a pull-out.
pull out.
Pull out, sorry.
Yeah.
I kept saying turnaround last time too.
Oh, that I do remember, okay.
Yeah, I was struggling with the fact that there was a pull-out lane on a one-way road.
And it's required to be, or is there,
I was pointing out that the planning and zoning portion of this It would either need to be a one-way road, driveway, or two-way. If it's a two-way driveway, then it needs to be 25 feet wide. They had a less wide driveway with a pull-off, so that if someone was coming the opposite
Oh,
direction,
a one-way, yeah.
they'd be able to pull off. And it's like, well, what do you need a pull-off for if it's one way? So we resolved that, and that they are now proposing a two-way.
Okay, so I guess what we're doing then is we're waiting for your plans to come in at the next meeting.
Well, what I would like tonight is a very quick critique of this. Is this what you're looking for? Or do you want more, or are these plants that are shown in this list sufficient?
Well, we don't have that list, so we have to look at it here. So
I don't know of any juniper that likes wet feet.
I don't know, it depends on where is there a location on this plan, or?
No,
That's that's gotta be along the driveway or something in the uplands? And hazelnut too.
well,
I've never seen hazelnut on a planting plan, but.
Again, we're talking about, oops,
I see.
an area that's relatively limited to this right in here. Well, again, we're gonna have wetland, rain garden plantings in here. So we're really limited to this area right in here.
But you're limiting it to that area.
Yes.
We're not limiting it.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, you know, the reason why we purchased this property, one was to expand our parking. We did that. The second is to be able to build an additional building so we can expand our operations into it. And then the third, which in the short term actually has been the biggest benefit, is that human safety aspect of being able to get from our parking lot to that exit driveway.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying to push the driveway or get rid of the driveway. I'm saying you're limiting your area that you're looking at for planting to whatever thin area. There's no reason why it couldn't extend beyond that, and if there needs to be, you know, additional plantings or enhancements, up to or into the wetlands, that's something that Cynthia, as the wetland scientist, should come to us really and say, you know, due to that violation, you know, here's what was affected, here's what we're proposing as mitigation to offset that, as well as keeping, you know, improving this area.
So you're talking about this area in here, which is down the bottom of the 4-foot retaining wall.
It doesn't matter where it is.
No.
If
That
it's
is
been
the area you're
affected,
referring to.
but yes, and into the wetlands, whatever was affected, I don't know what it was, it's what may have been affected from the violation. And it may not be anything more than what you're showing. But I can't judge that. You're just giving us a thin strip of plantings and saying, do you want more than this? Do you agree with this? And I'm just saying, how could we tell you that, yeah, that's okay to just do that thin strip?
Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all the violations were in the upland review area.
That driveway was permitted against this wetland?
Which, the one that?
The one that was cut in with
No.
the mills,
The milling.
the millings? That's right up against the wetland.
Well, it's up against the wetlands over here.
Yeah, it's
This-
up against the
there's
wetlands
a-
down there too, where it exits.
There's a retaining wall here where it drops off. And that was there, from what we could see, that wasn't part of the violation. That had been there for quite some time.
I believe there was also some significant tree removal, however, in the upland.
Right, there was tree removal.
And I think maybe that's what I would like to see,
But
the
this is
areas
all
that are
in
not
upland.
going to be, if they're in the upland,
Yeah,
but they're
review
still,
area.
but it was still part of a
Right, right.
violation. The areas that are not proposed to be built up in the next phase, the area, for instance, in the first hump of upland review is, that rounded area, but where you see where the driveway comes up to the back of the building, there's that section along the property border.
Yeah, well, this is all in
No, where your
Zoning setback.
pointer is right now,
Yeah.
that area.
yeah, that's all in the zoning setback, so planting that will never get changed. It will not be affected by the building at all.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
There isn't anything now, it's bare. So
Yeah.
I think that's what I would like to see. I would like to see some plantings in that area. I'm trying to be reasonable and work with you too, but we have the equivalent of a naked person up there, that somebody took all their clothes away, and we're trying to clothe them while we're waiting for somebody to go to the store. You know, it's one of those things that's just,
It's quite a metaphor.
you like that? It's the only thing I can come up with at the moment. But, you know, we have a naked thing that we're left with, and our job is to make sure that it gets enhanced a little bit, and waiting for, and that could be another 14 years before the building turns up. And in the meantime, we have nothing that is enhancing those other areas.
Right, I think all of this area surrounding it, especially in here and along there, can be planted now.
Okay, so
which
can you
would
put that
be
on your plan
which
for
would be
Cynthia?
Will be on the next plan.
The next plan, the one we're gonna see next time?
Next meeting.
Okay,
yes.
not the one you're talking about with
No,
the
the next-
He's
phase
taking,
two.
he's doing what he said, he's taking our direction.
Okay,
and
good.
he's saying
I'm
he's
just
No,
making
the
sure
next
that we're all
meeting.
talking about the same
And that
thing.
will be part of the phase one planting, because it's
Fantastic.
compatible with the
Mhm.
building.
Good.
But the phase two planting will be most likely something along the fence or something in here, that if the building is not built, we have something on that land, that large area. Something in here would be planted, phase two, if the building is not done. But along here, well, this will be planted because it's a rain garden, but this area in here, for example, I don't really want it to be too heavily vegetated at this point, because the only thing that's gonna keep invasive species out of here is mowing. We are completely surrounded by the area from here down to the bike trail. All of this area in here has a huge amount of invasive species. And I want to keep something in here that can be mowed and keep the invasives out.
If it, I guess the only thing I'd say is if it's gonna be a rain garden or a water quality feature, it has to function as such, and it has to be planted in a manner to function that way, and meet that quality renovation of stormwater
Right.
before it discharges through the pipe and then, you know, directly into that wetland.
Right, and that we will most likely lose. when
Yeah,
we
with the
do
next
lot.
phase.
But we're not talking about larger trees or things like that. And I don't think we can plant even that border with those trees and expect the shade to keep the vegetation, the invasives out. This area is thick. At the last meeting, I did have pictures of this in here and showed you the scars from the multiple roads. So it's that
It's
problem.
nasty stuff, no doubt about it.
And that's where, you know, a good monitoring program comes in.
All right, so we're talking about, again, just wrap this up, plantings, permanent, long-term in this area. This is short-term. This will be long-term all down here. This will never have to be taken out, so we can do a little more in that area.
Mhm.
And then possibly something along the fence. But keep this as a mowed area.
I can live with that.
If that seems what you want, that's what we'll come back with at the next thing for your more formal review.
And that's the phase one portion. And then the phase two portion would either be the building
Something else.
or some more
In this area.
in that area.
Correct.
And that's 3 to 5 years. 3 years, right? Or 5 years? What is- Okay, yeah, sounds good. So what happens?
something comes up on the computer, dude, it's 3 years, now we gotta go chasing them down and looking into this?
No,
Yeah.
no,
No, they
no.
gotta-
They submit, they can submit an annual report to Scott, to us, and we would see what their monitoring was.
Okay, anything
I
else?
look forward to seeing
for
what you
our-
bring us.
The next portion
I'm
of our
looking
regular
forward to
meeting?
seeing what you bring us.
I'll let Cynthia present. Thank you for that.
We're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you. Someone took notes on that. What were they for next time?
This was,
No, it doesn't take me to
exhibit.
That'll be part of the minutes, right? What we're looking for.
Well, hopefully,
What we said, because I don't remember saying
Okay.
3 to 5 years, but.
No, just monitoring, but we could, we, nothing that was said tonight would be held back, because we didn't approve anything.
I know.
It's just suggestions and what we might be looking for.
It just, I don't want to get in a situation where it's like, well, you guys suggested this.
I just said monitoring, I didn't give him, I didn't say a time frame, but if he's saying that he basically without much of a problem, then you go with a longer duration, 5 years. And that will stop people from saying, oh, yeah, there's a lot of basins out here, you know, so we don't want to do anything, it's all, you know, whatever.
Okay, moving on to our public hearing. IWC 2018-03, 425 Pepper Street, Growing Designs, Kidney, construction of a driveway, parking and storage area within a regulated area.
That's one of those ones with the bar that you swear is moving, but it's not. You know, you look at it and say, yeah, that's moving. No, it's not. Did you try right-clicking instead?
What's that?
Yeah, go up, like, go here. Go out of this.
failing not folding 1.0.
That's it right there, right? The problem is it's saying recovery. Folders, that's not it. So do you see a travel drive in there? Sometimes it doesn't like.
Oh, shoot.
So we have two different stick drives. Oh, that's good. Smart thing.
Yes.
What's been the last
Yeah,
time?
you said this. You talked about that. You were part of it. Just leave it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Sorry. Just getting our housekeeping under control.
Whenever you are, sir.
Good evening, my name is Jim Rotundo, I'm a licensed professional engineer with Dr. Hoffman Associates, with our offices located at 26 Broadway in North Haven. Here tonight also with Mr. Steve Kidney, who is the applicant and the owner of Growing Designs. Since the last meeting, we had the opportunity to submit to Mr. Schatzline some additional information and revised drawings in response to his comments and also the discussions that we had at the last hearing. One of the main items that we had discussion with at the last hearing was the stormwater basin and providing some additional volume within that basin. What we did was we extended that basin around the westerly edge of the big parking area. We were able to increase the width at the westerly end. With that increase in the volume, previously we were controlling up to the 25-year storm event. What this allowed us to do is to control up to the 100-year storm event, as was requested by Mr. Schatzline. Also, in conjunction with that, part of the discussion was, can we do something with the grading here to get some of this runoff to actually utilize that area? We did put some spot elevations, kind of formed like a high point right through this area here, and that's twofold. One, the concern was raised that currently, or previously, we were sheet flowing this whole area down into the basin area. So water would get into that material storage. So we created basically a high point in that material storage so we could get water to flow around that and then into the basin area. With that additional storage, a couple of the other items that we discussed kind of pertaining to that as alternatives. Number one was, I believe it was Mr. Stewart had suggested that we put in some subsurface infiltration chambers to collect the roof runoff from the existing building. Again, like I said, the volume with this setup here, we don't need that additional volume, so the roof leaders will be running into the stormwater basin area. Another item that we discussed that we looked at was potentially putting a swale across the top here to divert some of the upper area from getting down into our system. I took a look at that, and the actual drainage area really didn't equate to a large area up here. And to actually grade that out, we were getting into kind of a deep excavation as we were getting down into the toward the westerly property line. So again, with the volume that's now available in this basin, that could handle all that flow. So we're just allowing that to sheet flow down into our existing system, or our proposed system, excuse me. Unless there's any questions, that was kind of the issues that we had discussed last meeting. I had addressed, like I said, I provided some additional information to Mr. Schatzline, which he responded with revised comments, but I think there's some minor details to work out with Scott. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, most of your items were addressed?
Yeah, they were mostly either very technical or housekeeping items.
I had a couple questions, so I apologize, I wasn't here at the last meeting. The two catch basin tops that are in the basin, can you just explain the functionality of those and the elevations? The elevations aren't on the plan, but just.
That was actually, this project, as you may be aware, the history of it, it was previously approved. And during reviews with Mr. Schatzline, it was suggested to install a couple of those catch basin tops to just help aid with water infiltrating into the basin area. Now those will be set right at the bottom of the basin within the stone base there.
Is it to promote infiltration, or is it just to have a catch basin top on the stone?
It's just to help promote infiltration. There's no structure at all, it's just a top.
How does that?
Well, basically what's happened is we've experienced a couple situations where either in the wintertime when everything is frozen, there's no, the water doesn't get in there, and also call it contamination as it sediment and it fills in a little bit and you get growth in there. Sometimes it doesn't infiltrate into the ground as quickly or as efficiently as it should. So we found that if they put a couple of tops or a top or two right on the stone, it's just an open avenue for that water to get in there a little bit easier.
So what's the elevation supposed to be? Is it supposed to be flush with the bottom? Is
Yes,
that what
it
you
is.
just said?
That's correct.
Yeah, it just sits there on top of the catch basin, underneath, right underneath
It's
the
the
grate,
stone.
is crushed stone. If you didn't have that, there'd be topsoil and growth there, and it doesn't get in as fast. That just is something that we've kind of witnessed.
And in the basin, I saw that you did do a couple more test pits.
That's correct, yes.
I'm not an engineer, but I was trying to just do the comparison between where the redox was, right, and the bottom of the basin.
7 inches.
And, yeah, I had about 6 to 7 inches at test pit B, and about 9 at A. Am I about right?
Yeah, I pointed out that it's, obviously, typically, we're looking for 18 inches.
Yeah.
So it's marginal. So this fills up with water and spills over the rigid lip on the end.
But before we get to fills up with water, there's an oil water separator in the specs, and I'm trying to understand where it was on the plan.
That was my
That was
question.
the previous approval. The purpose for that was, the previously
It's okay.
approved project called for a gravel surface in this area here. At that time, Mr. Kidney had been talking about potentially washing down some of the machinery. And so we created a pad over in this area, a bituminous pad with the oil water separator. So any wash down would occur in that area, and then it would flow into the basin. With the new application, there's changes to the zoning regulations that don't allow the gravel surface anymore, and it's going to be paved. And Mr. Kidney has committed that there will be no washing of machinery or vehicles on this project here, on the site.
So the basin will be, for all intents and purposes, the only treatment of stormwater coming off of the site before it leaves.
That is correct. We did,
Well, I actually asked them, because they weren't putting in any other treatment, I suggested that they put in that pad of crushed stone along the edge, so that hopefully if there's any hydrocarbons, that kind of thing, it would kind of cling to that stone, and you'd get evaporation going on in that area, as, an attempt at least to pick up some of that.
we'd also be proposing within that basin, like a detention basin or a conservation type of mix. So trap some of those pollutants that are getting in there, something that's gonna not be maintained continually, but a couple times a year type of basis.
And the inlet to where the water's coming and the outlet is right next to each other, if I'm seeing this accurately.
Not necessarily. We aren't proposing curb along the edge here,
Right?
so this is all graded off as sheet flow.
Wait, there is a curb or there isn't?
There is no curb.
Oh, I thought you said there is
No,
a.
there is no curb. And we have the stone spreader along here. What we did here, based on our conversations, was if I could back up a little bit, we did look at the initial comments from the commission when you received the application to see if we could do any kind of mechanical treatment.
Right.
So we took a look at essentially putting curbing along that edge where I just said there was no curb, creating a low point, putting it into a catch basin, and then discharging into that swale. Problem is the site is so flat that this is the grade. The grade in the curb line with minimal cover over the pipe. The pipe is lower than the basin area. So we wouldn't be able to discharge in there. Even if we put in, a catch basin with some type of filter, rather than a structure, elevations don't allow us to that to work essentially. So what we did was, the discussion went, well, let's see, you know, can we provide some additional volume? And that brought up the discussion of increasing that swale along the westerly side of the parking area to provide more volume. Now, to your point where the inlet and the outlet are close to each other, there's, I want to say about two, this basin area is going to retain the runoff, and this weir is just about 2 feet above the bottom of the basin. So as water's collected in this portion of the swale and brought into the basin area, it's going to sit, and then it's going to overflow over this weir.
It's all stone?
The weir?
Yeah.
So, well, it's a stone spillway. There's going to be a concrete lip along here, which a rigid lip to protect that, to protect the overflow.
Okay. From a stormwater management, stormwater quality standpoint, you know, I understand kind of where we are on the site and some of the history. What, you know, as a professional engineer, what are some other enhancements that we can do to protect the receiving waters from this primary treatment, essentially?
Well, I think we did.
It's good, I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the Pequannock River is right there.
Oh, no, I fully understand. Unfortunately, given the elevations on the site, it kind of precludes some mechanical measures. One thing we could look at doing is maybe put in some kind of shrubs, some additional planting buffering along the top here, as well as this seed mix, just to kind of filter out any pollutants that may come out. Now, we submitted a stormwater maintenance plan and included in that, which I think is going to be a big part of the stormwater management system, is the proper maintenance of the site itself, meaning sweeping, you know, any debris that's in there, you know, getting in there and cleaning that up, kind of get it at the source, remove as much of that prior to it getting into this basin area. So it's not just the removal once it's in the runoff, but trying to minimize some of those pollutants, you know, sediment and so forth from getting in the runoff itself.
What's to protect the edge of the asphalt along the edge of the two edges of the parking lot, where it meets the gravel, and then along the left side where all those plants are that go along the side of the garage?
Well, the section of the pavement section, it's offset. It's not just a straight section where it would just start peeling off. Your base, just to give you an idea, your base, say it's 1 foot off the edge of pavement, your pavement section would be 6 inches off of it. So you get that kind of structural integrity on the edge of that pavement area. And then the stone is right up against that.
I had a question kind of along those lines. There is a line that is drawn vertically along the, go vertical next to the plantings, starting with just at the base of the finger basin. There's a line that, in between the storage area and the little basin. Okay, that line.
Yes.
Does that signifies the end of pavement?
That's correct.
Okay, is there anything that is, there's no curb there?
That's correct, there's no curb.
Else that is there to prevent activity from leaving the paved area and going into that area?
Well, we are planting a buffer there, so immediately adjacent to the edge of pavement, there's not any kind of physical structure. But
Well, the buffer is significantly to the west of that. And I'm talking about directly on that line, at the edge of pavement. There's nothing to stop cars from driving into there. I mean, granted, along the garage, they're not going to be doing that. But before, in front of the garage, there's all that opportunity, because those trees aren't gonna be big for a long time. And, there's a lot of opportunity for even people to drive into the swale.
I mean, we could align with some boulders, something.
Boulders,
Physical
a
obstruction.
fence, a significant curb
Well, see, putting the curb in here kind of defeats the purpose of what we were trying
of the
with
sheet,
this
of the
place
sheet flow.
to-
Okay,
right, and
yes.
allowing
Right, I
runoff to
understand that.
leave the pavement.
Okay, so I am looking for some kind of a physical barrier
Right,
to keep that area from being encroached upon.
Like split rail fence or something.
Yeah, something
Okay.
that's, would that be something that you
I'm
could do?
sorry. As a physical obstruction along this area here, putting in a split rail.
Well, you want something that water can,
Get
you
it.
want to obstruct water, but it's gonna obstruct drivers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Basically.
Just a
I mean,
visual.
we could, I'm happy to do whatever you want. We could place boulders 3 feet apart from each other. I suppose you could put in, wooden posts with some type of, almost like they do on the side of the road.
Yeah,
Guardrail.
Split rail type of fence.
Yeah.
Actually,
Or
wouldn't
even
wetland
lumber.
markers be appropriate there?
Yeah, I was thinking more just a heavy rail.
Wetland markers.
Just one heavy rail lower.
They're not really.
I get the idea, so whatever you guys are more comfortable with.
It's just to inhibit people from,
From driving.
Right, no, understood.
And are the trees being undersown with any seed mix?
In this area, we could do a conservation mix, where the trees are
Mhm.
Okay.
being planted.
Do you have a, in just talking about the boundary there, do you have an access point if you needed to, whatever, with your maintenance plan, to access the basin for sediment removal, for emergency response?
Tree removal.
Yeah, it's right adjacent to the driveway, so it's easy access. Even if we do some plantings here, I think the sizes of this is of the magnitude where a small machine, a small backhoe could get in there, or even by hand type of maintenance.
Mhm.
Do you have a maintenance plan that is prepared?
Yes, we
For
do.
that? Does that include no spraying of herbicides within it?
No, we did not include.
Okay, can we please add that to your maintenance plan? We've seen too many rain gardens being sprayed with herbicides.
No,
It's not pretty.
I think that what I mentioned, the type of mix we put in there is something that you're not gonna maintain from a, constant basis. You can only
Right.
cut it once or twice a year, but we can certainly add that.
Either-
Now, I was just gonna say, as far as the maintenance goes, I was thinking it would be more of just a hands-on maintenance. I mean, whenever you see any leaf debris or anything building up in there, you're just gonna physically get down in there and rake it up and, tarp it out of. And I don't think it requires heavy equipment or.
Oh, no, not
And the
necessarily.
access is easy enough just to walk down there and.
Mhm. We
clean
just
it
need a
up and-
plan of some kind. That's really all.
The material storage area in that, in that corner, what do you propose or
It's
envision?
just if we come home and we have some extra mulch in the truck. It's just a
Yeah.
place to put materials temporarily, so we're not just dumping them either over there, or,
Mhm.
it's a spot to temporarily keep things.
If I remember correctly from the last hearing, you were talking about nothing, no volatile organic compounds or like millings or
I don't-
asphalt
we don't
or
even deal with
fertilizer
that.
or anything like
Everything we deal
that.
with is just basically what comes out of the landscape, so it's organic. I mean, it's gonna be grass clippings, topsoil, mulch.
And it's covered, so, I mean, the
it-
concern
is
with
it-
that is,
is it covered?
runoff from that
Well, we're
side,
not
on three
proposing
sides.
a roof structure.
Oh, you're not? Oh,
No,
it's
no
just on three sides?
Yes.
That was a different project you're thinking of. I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. That wasn't this one.
Well, especially if it's like wood chips and going through, how many ever rain events, I'd have a concern with the runoff getting into the basin and right into the river.
Again, I have to take a look at the location. I'd be concerned, I think we're out of setback, turning into a structure which is what we don't want it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly it could be tarped, but again, as Mr. Kidney said, it's kind of materials that are brought back from a job, they'll be gone, so it's not long-term storage.
Or is it a method of hardening the base or creating a curb on the inside so that you're not, you're kind of containing the material and it's not just on that, you understand?
Yes, so runoff isn't gonna go between the, because we're proposing.
It's like having a
modular
containment
concrete
area.
blocks, so,
Yeah,
just so nothing gets through the cracks.
right.
We could, yeah, I think that's something that.
What's happening behind the garage? Is
I
that
was
being
assuming
paved?
lawn. No, that's all gonna be planted.
I'm sorry, to the north of the garage. Right now, there's a garage that's kind of sticking out,
Right,
it's
this is
25
all,
feet.
this is all planted area, that's all lawn. The whole site, there's the existing building,
Right,
there's a proposed driveway, proposed parking area in the rear, the existing garage. All other areas that aren't shown as the new planting areas or the basin area will be seeded, will be lawn areas. So to the north and to the east of the garage is all gonna be lawn area.
because I was thinking that would be an okay area for storage. It's behind the garage, it's further away from the river. And the garage actually creates a barrier from the downhill flow. I mean, granted, there's not much of a hill, but there's still a downhill flow. So I didn't know how that would work. It's hard to tell without, you got so many existing and proposed and stuff like that, because that's what I was,
I mean, by doing that, we'd have to increase our impervious surface, we'd have to create a
that's
dry
true.
area to the
That
back.
changes your drainage,
And
doesn't
we'd have
it?
to, we'd be putting a large paved area in the back here.
Hmm.
And then, I mean, from a zoning standpoint, I'd have to check, but would that be allowed within a setback, Scott, the storage area?
Oh, that's right, it's setback.
Could, I know pavement is, if it's a parking area. So uncovered, I think it would be.
But again, with this footprint here, I think it's functional for what Mr. Kidney needs.
It certainly wouldn't be practical.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I just figured I'd throw it out there as a suggestion. So what kind, pardon me if I go backwards here, what kind of a barrier are you proposing along the side of that parking, along the side of the asphalt, going north and south?
We'll just do a wooden type of guide rail or wooden fence type of,
Okay. I'm just writing notes,
Right.
that's all.
Would boulders be sufficient?
I like the idea of boulders.
I have access
Boulders
to
are
them, we
fine.
could make it so that obviously they'd be closer than a car width,
Boulders are fine with me.
cheaper for me.
That's,
I got plenty,
Cheap is
if you need
good.
any more, man, just give me a call. Hook you
What's
up.
that?
I got plenty in my yard,
the whole yard.
so if you need any more boulders, let me know.
So we're talking about 3 feet on center, or, and what size
I
boulders?
would say side to side,
well, 3 feet space in between.
yeah, that's what I would.
Open
Okay,
space.
themselves. I see, some people think this is a boulder.
No,
So-
I'm thinking,
Minimum
18 inches
2
high,
feet.
3 feet wide, something like that.
The boulders that you guys have asked for in the past have been minimum size of 2 by 3, or 3 by 3 actually. That, because
They don't
one,
sink as easily.
well, 1 foot of it ends up below grade,
Right,
so they're 3 by 3 cubic yard.
okay. Is that something you could acquire?
Like 3 cubic feet.
Ah,
So
cubic
like a
feet.
cubic yard.
Yeah.
8
The
cubic yard,
stone.
yeah.
Or something?
They're large bulk, 3, in other words, you can't move them very easily. Once they're there, they're not easy to move. But, you can move them with a piece of heavy equipment. But that's been the size that they've asked for in the past, 3 by 3 by.
So 3 by 3 by 3.
Yeah, it almost seems oversized, but
3 by 3 by 3, or
That's,
give or take an inch or two.
I mean,
Approximately.
yeah, give or take, but I mean, that's the
Yes.
general,
Yeah.
Because
You know,
we know
goal.
rocks do have a tendency to migrate downward, and all of a sudden they kind of disappear. They do in my yard anyway. They're all under surface. So that would be. Okay. Good, thank you. I think I'm done with my questions.
Jim, I'm sorry, where, do you have markers on there, the wetland markers?
No, we could install those.
Okay, so you guys want to talk about those are always, I mean, I would suggest that those are just put along the edge of pavement where the boulders are going to be
Right.
going.
Mhm.
And what distance apart do you want your markers?
We usually put them like every 25, 50 feet.
You started
50
out,
feet is
you
too-
really
too
started
far.
out with 75 feet.
Yeah, but that's,
25 is pretty darn close. That's, I mean, in my opinion.
I would say for something like this, it's like, all you would need is 3.
one
Three
in the
markers in
center and
each
one
space.
on each end. That works.
That's my opinion, I guess.
That sounds good. Okay.
And this basin is sized for,
Up to the 100-year storm event.
storm. That's it. I'm done.
You all set? Jeff?
yeah, erosion sediment controls.
Yes, there's an erosion and sedimentation control plan
Yep.
included in your set.
Stockpile area, that's good.
Is there detail on the containment of the storage area?
We don't have one on the drawings. It's going to be concrete blocks. We do have a dimension on the drawings.
How many
as far as the
courses?
size. We were proposing 2, but I think it was discussed at the last meeting that you may prefer 3, just to give it some more containment.
That's what I thought I remembered also.
Yes,
I'm
and
glad
I
you
think,
clarified that. Thank
we
you.
could provide that.
Well, it just depends on what your, like,
Okay.
volume that you're storing there. If it's just a little bit, 2 might be fine.
Better be safe.
But if we keep going higher and higher, it's
Well,
just,
It's almost like, should we specify a maximum height? But depending on the height, we say 3 blocks, do you get 18-inch blocks, or do you get 3-foot-high blocks? So, I mean, what would you think you'd need, like 6 feet high is,
Yeah, I wouldn't even think.
So-
4 feet high.
yeah, so a maximum of 6 feet high?
and I've seen where they stack them up where it might be like, say, 4 feet high in the back. And then there's a course down from there and it's, step down towards the
Right,
front.
Yes, along the sides, correct, yeah. So,
Because
I
you
mean,
don't
we
want
could-
it spilling over because that's going to fill up the swale.
Exactly, so
So-
I think maybe if we specify a maximum height of 6 feet, and if it takes 2 blocks to make that, or 3 blocks, this way we're not,
Yeah,
And a minimum of 4?
minimum 4 feet, that's fine.
Okay. That's good.
Anything else from the commission? Anything else from staff?
Did we address all your questions, Scott?
Yeah,
Comments?
well, just a question for you, Jim. You guys don't have a problem with coming up with the verification for A2T2?
No, I actually spoke with with Tracy Lewis. There was a little miscommunication between him and I as far as what was necessary. I did drop off today what he prepared as a latest plan, which, when the garage was constructed, he did an as-built of that area. So that is actually what this latest site plan is based on, is as-built, but we're getting all the proper
Okay, so
maps
you can
together.
do that.
Yes.
Yeah, they've addressed everything else of mine. Before the public comment, the bond recommendation was for $16,000.
Scott, just on that, I know Steve has a current bond posted from the last application. So that could be rolled over.
Yeah, how much was that? Do you remember?
10.
10, okay, yeah. Well, what kind of bond was it? Letter of credit? Or was
No,
It was
I
cash?
gave the town 10,000 for wetlands and 10,000 for,
So it was a
And
check?
Cash, a check or cash?
Like a bank
Yeah.
check, what it would have.
I wrote you a
Yeah,
check.
so we have to change the a bond agreement that goes with that to reflect this new application, but yes, it could be utilized toward this.
Is there any reason for the increase?
Inflation?
The reason for the increase is,
You guys got 20,000 for a
did you
long time.
look at the bond recommendation that I sent you?
Yes, I think my estimate was for about 10,000, and then you had increased it another 6,000.
All right, give me a second. Usually I send it if there's a question about it.
That's the one. It's okay.
We can see if it's in there. I found this out loose. So, usually I never read it. I'm not seeing it. It's got to be here somewhere.
You don't see it either.
It's always so hard to flip these pages.
I know.
Okay, so here's my bond, it should be right with this.
Let's just.
We'll switch.
Turn here.
Okay. All right, so I'm right on the same numbers as you with sedimentation, erosion, control, silt fence, topsoil, same number. The landscaping, was only $2,500, and I bumped that up, 1,000. So
So there's the other 6.
the plantings, you know, I just felt, it was a lump sum item, I felt that it was kind of low.
We
I
have,
want to show the aerial, show the aerial on the westerly.
this is our plant list right here of what's proposed in that area. 3, 6, 9, 17. So there's 26 plants within the wetland buffer area essentially. Along the garage, we have 11 arborvitae, and there's a red maple in that island we have.
That's existing, but we were talking about adding to that.
Oh, no, this is the proposed plantings.
Understood.
Oh, okay.
But remember, tonight we were talking about adding to that along the pavement edge before it spills off into the basin.
Oh, okay.
Right, at
Yeah.
the end of the, yeah, at the end.
I have a question. Wouldn't you be better off with like some type of turf mix there? I mean, wouldn't
Well, it
that
should
be
be-
more than like a shrub?
That's gonna be within the basin area, but right along,
But even on the other side of the gravel, wouldn't something that's thicker catch more debris than?
that'll be on
Shrub?
the downslope side of the of the stone here, and then it'll be a turquoise after that, within the basin.
I don't want to argue with my engineer. I guess my question is, what would be the sense on the other side of that gravel of planting shrubs?
On which side, when you say other side?
You're talking.
Between the two.
Between the pavement and the trench.
What we were talking about was the fact that this is your only treatment on site before the water exits to get to the Aquanic.
Mm-hmm.
What other benefits could we get without using structural measures, because you can't, or, you know, the
Yeah, I
mechanical?
understand that. Wouldn't a ground cover or something that is gonna absorb more as the water runs through it?
I would say both.
Do more than a shrub?
I would say-
don't think the shrub would really do anything. Personally, I'm not an engineer, I don't know.
A combination of a grass mix, a good thick, you know, grass mix, and having the shrub species there.
Just from the.
From a denitrification standpoint,
Yes, yeah.
there's two questions that, 2 points really. It was knocking down some of the coarse suspended solids, which the grass could do, and the stems of the shrubs could do. The finer suspended silty soils are gonna go into the basin. Nothing's gonna stop that. It's really knocking down the coarse suspended solids.
So which shrubs would you recommend for that?
Along the top, I would,
Ornamental grasses or something like that. Could be a lot of asphalt, it's gonna have some,
Ornamental grass.
that could,
oh, yeah,
live
that
in
thick
dry
stuff.
soil. you
Yeah.
know? It's gonna, that area's gonna cook with so much
Do
masonry.
you have any suggestions, Steve? The
I
landscape?
think the ornamental grasses are a good idea, because I think they're so thick
And they can continue to grow.
yeah, and they keep expanding, that they're gonna probably be the best buffer for catching anything running across. That's what I was thinking, if you have a stem coming out of the ground,
But if you can get,
that stem's not gonna
even if
do
you had,
anything.
huh? No, but you're
Yes, I
talking,
just-
there's other things, as you have, depending on the storm event, you could get a greater benefit from the woody plant with the quality process, stormwater quality process, than just the grasses. But
think
you
it-
also get a wildlife habitat benefit for having some of the shrubs there.
I don't know if you're gonna get that with they have such minimal width. They don't have a lot of room there. I think you're thinking if it's wider and it's like spread out, you kinda get that, but they're gonna almost have like a soldier force, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have about maybe 5 feet down to 0 feet.
Yeah,
along.
so maybe just the ornamental grass
Yeah, if
clumps.
you did like 3 to 4 foot ornamental grasses,
Yeah,
just running along there with, you know, other vegetation running
yeah,
all through it.
yeah.
Okay, so what did you guys decide on the bond? They questioned the bond, we kind of
Sorry.
digressed.
So the $6,000 difference was in landscaping, is what you're saying?
I just drew.
Roundabouts.
Yeah, and to be quite honest with you, I didn't compare it, I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't compare it with the previous. So,
Mr. Kinney also gets a discount on the shrubs, too.
yeah, we look at it as a number that we have to come up with.
Well, when you set your bond, is that included the planting of the shrubs or just the purchase?
It's not that exact a science.
I
mean,
know it's not,
we're-
so it's
So, really, to be quite honest with you, I think the majority of it is more of the bond legally is meant as a site stabilization and restoration. And in reality, it's probably more of a performance.
Yeah.
Right. that's what they do
Situation.
have to do.
So you're at 16,000, and you already posted 10?
I already posted 10 for wetlands and 10 for, I guess it's planning and zoning. or-
Right, that
That's-
was original.
That's something else.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
how,
what's the stipulation of release of that in the future?
Well, once all the work is done, then it gets released.
Mm.
If they're too small to be reduced, because that number covers the scenario where he goes in, kind of the scenario that we're at right now, where he goes in, does some of the work, creates a disturbance and doesn't finish. The wetlands bond is a whole lot easier to pull due to the legal parameters.
So it's like soil and erosion controls, it's the plantings.
Yeah, so that's why it's based on, sedimentation control, looking at how much area is disturbed, because we would have to go in, for instance, if they rough in a parking lot, we wouldn't finish the parking lot. The town, in reality, the town wouldn't do anything, we would force it to happen. But the area that's disturbed would have to be topsoil and seeded so it becomes stable. So I really don't have a big deal with, we got $20,000 in bonding on the thing, so.
So you'd be happy with 10?
Yeah, I could live with the 10.
All right.
I appreciate it. It makes it easier to complete the work, if you don't have my number.
Understood.
What I do with the comments.
Did you have anything
One
else,
last-
Scott, there?
No, that's it for me.
Mr. Rotundo?
Yes, sir.
Did your office come up with the planting plan?
This was the planting plan that was put together with the original application. With the aid of Cynthia Rabinowitz had flagged the topsoil, or the wetland soils, so we developed it with her input. That was 8 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
What's that? Do we need anything else? Do you want to read the exhibits?
Okay?
Is that what you're pointing at, or you're pointing,
No, we haven't done any that yet. So
are you pointing, or were you?
Yeah, she was pointing
Yes,
to
she's
these.
Yes.
pointing.
Okay. Exhibits are, exhibit number 1 was the previous approval provided by staff. That was, the document was dated from April 12th, 2007. Exhibit number 2 was a photo of the sign posted on the property. Exhibit number 3 was a test hole report by Godfrey Hoffman, dated April 17th, 2018. Exhibit number 4 was Aquarian and Health Department notification and a butter notification with corresponding certificate of mailing receipts. Exhibit number 5 was the town engineer comments and bond estimate. The document was dated April 20th with a revision date of April 25th. Exhibit number 6 was a request to postpone or continue by Jim Rotundo. The document was dated May 9th. Exhibit number 7 was a 6-sheet plan set by Godfrey Hoffman. The document was dated February 27th, 2018, revision date May 15th, 2018. Exhibit number 8 was the supplemental stormwater calculations by Godfrey Hoffman. The document was dated May 15th, 2018. Exhibit 9 was response to town engineer comments by Godfrey Hoffman, document dated May 15th. Exhibit number 10 was updated town engineer comments by Scott Schatzline. The document was dated April 20th, revision date May 18th. Exhibit number 11 was an email from the health department from Rich Jackson. The document was dated December 22nd, 2017. Exhibit number 12 was a letter regarding the wetland conditions by Cynthia Rabinowitz. The document was dated May 15th. And exhibit number 13 was an improvement location survey by Lewis Associates, and that document was dated February 19th, 2016.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have to open for public comment, even though there's no public here, right? Anybody here in favor of this, well, I'd like to make a comment in favor of this application, support this application. Seeing none, anybody want to make a comment in opposition to it? Anybody want to make a comment in the general nature? Anything else from the applicant?
No, Mr. Chairman, we're all set, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission, from staff? So we'll close the hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to our enforcement section, most violation discussion, 144 Meadows End Road, filling in wetlands, lawn, and upland review area.
Where are you going there, chief? We did that last week.
No, he's right, it's 144 Meadows End Road, and that is,
Oh, yeah, it's right there.
that was
Chief.
put on there because you did that last meeting.
That's what I
But
thought.
when we came up with the drawing and met with the property owner, they had issues with the plantings. And so I thought they were gonna be here, so they're a no-show, so I don't know what's happening at this point. I mean, he called me and said that he wanted to go before the commission and talk to you again. I said, okay, I'll put you on the agenda. So I don't know why they didn't show up. But basically, when they looked at it, his comment was that, in his opinion, the wetlands didn't even have that many trees to begin with. And to put back, that many plantings in the area to be restored, he didn't think it was appropriate or fair or whatever. So, but he's a no-show, so I'll have to talk to him and find out what's going on. And there was a lot of back and forth with discussion and issues of, well, what does the buyer want? Maybe they went to see the buyer, I don't know. So I'll have to fill
So
you in.
So he can't sell the property until we get this resolved?
Well, I mean, theoretically, they can,
Yeah.
but usually it gets in the way.
Yeah.
And,
then it's, all right.
I mean, they came before, you weren't here at the meeting, they came before the commission. What they did was, they preempted the whole notice of violation and waiting, and they came with a verbal proposal saying, yes, we understand, we have to fix this, we'll do whatever, whatever you want. And they kind of talked about what would be done. And the commission came up with a spacing of plantings. I think Jim was the one who came up with it, approximately every 600 feet in a rough grid. And so we marked that out on the plan and gave it to them, and once they saw it on paper, I think they realized how many plants it was, how many different plantings there were, and they had issues with it at the time. But he's not here, so I don't know what's happening.
25 feet apart or something?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was 20 or 25 feet.
Something right
For
there.
trees, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think he readily agreed, and then he found out how much trees cost.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he's not here, so I guess we're
So I have it marked down as a no-show, no action.
moving on.
But what are we gonna do?
You don't have to do anything.
We already made a plan with him.
There's an approval that he has.
But he wanted to
and-
come and talk about our plan, because he wasn't very happy with the,
2.5 to 3 inch
You
caliber.
you
trees.
guys already approved something,
yeah.
and that's what he wasn't happy with.
Oh,
For all I know,
yeah.
he was gonna go back and think about it and talk to the
Yeah.
possibly talk to the buyer, and I haven't heard from him since.
So as a commission, we're just gonna go on the assumption that whatever we decided last meeting is in effect.
Stands until.
Is in
we
effect.
correct
And
it.
if he wants to
Yeah.
change, he's gotta come back and ask us about it.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm gonna move along to application hearing determinations. Is that acceptable? Can I just get okay. IWC 2018-07, 205 Monroe Turnpike, proposed creation of 2 new lots, Lot 1, proposed retail space. Lot 2, proposed multi-use, retail, restaurant, and medical. 205 Monroe Turnpike LLC. Louis Regina, member. Applicant Ray Rizzio, representative Solely Engineering LLC, engineer.
Okay, so this is, I just got this today, so bear with me, but this is a proposal for a multi-use development of new gas station, restaurant, retail shopping center, and medical office. It is a large piece of property, and in the in the middle, on the southerly end, there's a wetland area. And the property, overall project site is 8.63 acres. The wetlands on the property are minimal, they're 0.19 acres. Upland review area on the property is 1.74 acres.
Is this one that was cleared
Yes,
a couple of years,
yep,
a year ago or so?
Yes.
Okay. I know exactly which one it is then.
okay, so the wetland, there are, as far as what they're proposing, they are proposing 0 wetlands disturbance. They're proposing 1.26 acres of upland review area disturbance. Total regulated area to be altered is the 1.26 acres. Let's see, what
Oh, this is right across from Shawnee Lane and that, in Blueberry, off of Spring Hill.
It's not
No,
far
it's-
from the Trumbulltown line on
It's
the
right
west
on
side.
111.
All right, so if I'm standing at Goodwill, it's diagonal across the street.
No,
It's
the
no, it's
property,
down,
Down a little
it's
further.
southerly.
behind DR Charles, right?
Yeah,
Where all those bins
diagonally
are.
across, right,
Yeah.
okay. Because diagonally north would be Walgreens,
Yes. It's not near the corner, it's
further
further
down,
the street.
understood.
It's close
Yes,
to the
Charles
Trumbulltown
place,
line.
yes, yes,
Yep.
yes, yes.
There is a location map on the set of
Right,
plans.
right on the front page.
All right, so
Is there a wetland assessment in here?
there is a wetlands
What's that? Oh, yeah.
assessment report,
That's all we're
yes.
looking for here.
They've done a notice to in the Wetlands Department in Trumbull, so we've got that. It is not in a public watershed, so that's not involved. And I don't know what else I can tell you about it, but that's basically the gist of it.
Well, it says wetland assessment, but there's nothing in there.
The last,
Bill Kenny put
Yeah.
it together
To be submitted under separate cover,
Yeah, it was.
unless it's,
tonight.
It's, no, it's right here.
It's in the beginning, yeah, all
yeah,
the
it's
papers.
dated May 22nd.
I expect, God forbid I expect something to be behind its tab.
Sorry,
I'm not
it
picking
was
on you.
dropped off. Yeah, it is.
Not picking on anybody.
I did.
Now, there is one thing that I do have to get clarification on from zoning is, they are subdividing the property, but I think they're not subdividing it, I think they're exercising their first time split, which,
Isn't it been split already, because it's got 2 addresses?
I think what they're doing is they're reconfiguring the line.
Oh,
So
those
it's
things.
the line, so in other words, what I'm telling you is that the lots are changing,
Mhm.
but because of the way that the statutes are written, it doesn't involve a subdivision referral, because they're not creating any new lots.
Okay.
I'm gonna get confirmation of that, but I believe that's what's going on. All right, so that's why
I
it's
need
only
to change my
a,
wording because I put proposed creation of 2 new lots.
Ah.
yeah, it's
Okay.
not. So, I don't believe it is anyway. So it's just a regulated activity,
Maybe reconfigure.
which is what they have checked off on their application.
This is the property behind it. Yeah, DR Charles is here.
Huh? Oh, no, I know, I saw that.
Okay. So I'm feeling that,
Public hearing.
thank you. So did I hear a motion?
I move that we bring this to public hearing and that there may be significant impact and it may be in the public interest.
I have a motion by Commissioner Spence. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Second by Commissioner Massaraco. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes unanimously.
So lot 1 is right on 111. Lot 2 is behind it. Okay.
Hey, Scott, reference that the site was delineated in 2014. The plans talk about 2006 for the wetland boundaries. So Kenny's report talks about 2014. So we just need some clarification on
So what's referring to 2006?
the development plans.
Okay, so I'll check that. 2006 is,
So we'd have that, it'd have to be redone, but.
right.
Okay. So we'll move on to deliberations on completed hearings. I believe we have one for 425 Pepper.
Move to approve with conditions.
I have a motion by Commissioner Spence to approve with conditions. Do I
Okay,
hear a
are we
second?
going to be doing, aren't we gonna be doing the?
Oh, that's right. I,
Scratch our motion?
yes, scratch that motion. Withdraw the motion.
So I think what Commissioner Spence meant to say was that she would like to ask Scott to draft a letter of approval with the following conditions, correct?
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted.
That's exactly what I heard you say.
That's right.
All right, let me do my stuff first, then you guys can add to it, that a current A2 and T2 survey be provided, that the filter fabric be added along the outside of the stone base materials, that the plan should be revised to match the spillway elevation with the revised calculation, that came in with the revised calculations, it's just off a tenth. That the operation and maintenance plan, the provided text should be included on the final submission plans, and that the operation and maintenance plans be posted in the building. Bear with me. Probably I would say the garage. Provide boulders along the westerly edge of the paved parking and storage area, rear lot. Boulders would be three by three, approximately three feet square, cube. And that they be no further apart than how many feet?
3 feet,
3 feet.
side by side, you said, right? No,
3 feet between, oh, I do have that. Add, in the operation and maintenance plan, add that the no herbicides be sprayed in the detention basin, and provide markers, minimum of 3 wetland markers along the edges, same edge of pavement and line of boulders. That the storage area include a minimum 4-foot height and maximum 6-foot height blocks around the storage unit, and that they be a minimum of 2 rows high.
Well, that's if,
Unless
depends
he
on
gets
the
a
size of
4-foot
the
block.
blocks he's using.
All
That's
right,
why we did the
so let's
feet.
just leave it the size.
that's what
Okay,
we
I
did.
wrote both. Provide provide ornamental grasses along the stone filter strip along the northerly edge of the basin.
Do we want clumps of them or a continual soldier course?
I think a continual soldier course is what
Okay.
you, I mean, they're in
Is
clumps,
that
but they're
something-
gonna be,
The ornamental grasses?
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it continuous, did you want, or did you want
You want the area filled up with them, right? I mean, so if they're staggered, it's better, right?
I would say staggered because they're gonna expand by themselves.
Maybe
Right.
3 feet apart, you think, or? Because
To
Depends
start,
on
that'll
what they
be,
are.
huh?
Depends on what they are.
That's,
most of them create this really hard mass.
Yeah, they
It's
can
like
clump.
8 inches above the soil level.
yeah,
So if you have them touching each other, you're gonna create a
You
berm
get-
that water
you-
can't even pass.
Right,
yeah.
yeah, true.
So staggered course?
Maybe one
Yeah,
every
3 feet
3
apart.
3
feet.
feet.
If they choose like the Scanthus sinensis, those things grow, you know,
Well, it depends on how big, so I've seen small ones too, like
Yeah,
small
there are
stuff.
small varieties.
I
Yeah,
think,
we
I
don't want
think you
anything that
want
grows,
the,
like you said, because you'll prevent the
I think
the
you
flow.
want smaller varieties, don't you?
I think they all spread and create that little,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you want them staggered, but you want them separated.
I think so.
I would say like 3 feet is a good call.
Okay.
Are we talking about all the same type? Or are we gonna change, gonna have several different varieties?
I don't think it matters, does it?
I think for,
You want.
I think
how
it
about
needs to be kind of just expressed that it's an
3
ornamental
different
grass.
varieties?
No,
yeah,
no, that it's an ornamental grass that
yeah, maybe 3 different
grows
varieties.
or masses. Because if you don't specify a little bit, ornamental grasses, it could be a lot of different things.
Okay, in clumps.
I don't know, I
I
can't
think
remember
what's
the
gonna
exact
happen is
word
if
what
they
that
plant this stuff
term is for the.
and it builds up a berm, the guy's a landscaper, he's gonna mow, he's gonna just cut into it, because otherwise he's gonna get water
Right, it's gonna
building
go
up there.
forward, backwards.
So, I mean,
It'll get, well, yeah.
he's gonna have to maintain it. That's- All right, I'll think of some wording and you can tell me if it's okay.
Fantastic.
The bond of 10,000, and, did you have anything you wanna add to that?
Yeah, there's gonna be no storage of millings, dyed mulches, salt, brine, or the chlorides. That was offered, was agreed to during the hearing anyway.
Dyed mulches, what else?
Salt, brines, other chlorides,
What brines?
brine,
No,
Salt,
before that, oh,
salt,
salt.
salt.
salt, comma, brine.
No fertilizer stored outside or
Fertilizer.
anything like that.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
You said wood chips? You said dyed wood
No
chips?
dyed
Yeah.
wood chips. They,
Is that a bad,
they-
No, no,
is
no,
that a
I,
bad,
no, I just don't, he talked about possibly storing wood chips, but I don't know if he knows that,
He said at the last meeting that he
No
does
dyed.
not deal in
Okay.
dyed
all
wood
right,
chips.
okay,
okay,
He said he only does organic mulch.
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Undersow the trees with upland mix,
As offered.
that's awful.
For example, conservation, seed mix.
Okay, conservation.
He
seed
did
mix, right.
mention that in the hearing.
All right. There should be no vehicle washing on site.
Vehicle or equipment,
Right.
and or equipment.
I think that's it. Or conservation mix and basin, I guess that was that in the details?
He talked about it tonight, I can't remember if it was in, seed mix was in the plans.
Well, we can't, I mean, we talked about, yeah, so didn't we?
And I'm gonna throw one more out there, and I think that this really needs to be a standard where if there's any mitigation being done on a site, whether it's part of a violation or an application, anytime they're planting, and obviously we could use judgment on the size of the area, there should be some type of monitoring and then a report back to you, which, you know, could come to us, if you could just report back, but,
We usually do.
Yeah, I
have a
added that to our
3-year month.
standard comment.
It's
Oh, you
standard,
did?
yeah.
And
How
it's a-
many- how many
it's
years?
3 year.
3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a standard verbiage that I put in there. All you have to
Does it
tell
talk
me is
about
you
a
want the
report,
model.
a report to you?
It's an annual
yeah.
report that comes in to the
I think it's from an
The park.
appropriate professional too, I
Right.
believe.
Qualified.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, when those reports come in, they would get routed to the commission so that I tell you about that. Because if they have any kind of recommendation or any kind of variation, you guys need to know about it.
We've never
We,
gotten.
I haven't seen
have-
anything.
I have to tell you that in more than, there's been a couple of occasions where they don't do it.
Yeah,
And what happens is we get to the end, when it's time to release the bond, and they have to go in and I guess that's something that we need to get a little bit more diligent
We're
on.
trying with the
We're
calendar,
trying, but
yeah.
we're understaffed.
Policing that
It's
is very
hard to keep up with
It
that
is,
stuff.
Sure.
we've got a calendar now where we're marking it out years.
Yeah, we're trying to do a follow-up, some type of a follow-up program, but no matter how you do the follow-up program, it depends upon human
mhm.
Right.
participation, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. I
So
think
so if a
that's
report is
all.
part of the bond release and completion of the work, you know, and if at the point they haven't done it at all and say it's a couple years out, and they need to
Do something, then.
replace plants that are dead, or.
I know, and then you don't get the benefit of the tiered approach along the way, so, yeah. We're trying to work on that, that's been a problem.
Okay.
So I'll put in
But it's
there,
in the forefront.
so you want the 3-year monitoring, all right, and then I also need a deadline, because in this case, although they have development in there, they've already constructed the building and did have their development, so I think it's reasonable to say that, you know, you're not giving them 5 years to do the rest of the development because it's remediation.
No, this should be done this summer.
Yeah, so you want it done by August?
90 days?
Now, bear in mind that if they get started and then they plant it in the middle of the summer, sometimes what happens is the landscapers come to me and they say, you know, we really want to plant in the fall, the plants are going to do so much better. So you might want to think about, August is kind of cutting them off.
Well, you could say September.
Is the swale part of the development, or is that part of the remediation?
The swale is both. I mean, the
Really?
swale is part of the development. It's the
Requirement.
environmental part of the development. And they've
Okay, so
already
is
put
that
the,
included in what we want done by,
I think it should be, because they
Absolutely.
already put the building up and they're already
Okay.
using that
That's
storage
fine.
area.
because
So-
I'm thinking that it's probably to our benefit to list the things that we want included in that time period.
Well, normally
Because
that's what I
otherwise
do.
it's kind of loosey-goosey.
That's normally what I do, but what I'm saying, in this case, I think it all should be done.
Yeah, the whole plan should be done.
Well,
Yeah.
you're right, because there's
Yeah.
no building, we're not talking about doing any building, okay.
Right.
Because
That
it's already
sounds
done.
fine.
Right.
So this is all done by the end of September?
I would give
Right,
it at
the
least.
end.
You good with that, Russ?
Yeah.
Right, with the plantings?
Sure.
You're not going to go any later than that anyways, otherwise you're up against, you know, dormant season. so.
Right.
All right, so, and then the only other thing I need is the reasons.
Well, this is a remediation, do we need reasons for remediation?
It's also,
Development.
it is still development because it's a reinstatement of his original development.
Do we have a,
We do.
Yes.
Yeah, I have mine in my regs.
It can't hurt to put it on, you know, it's like,
It's
Yeah.
usually 1 and 3.
Yeah, 1 and 3 probably work here.
I think I need a copy of those.
Okay,
Actually, I think we need to come up with some new ones too, that they're not complete. Approval, here we go.
Jeff, that
One
might be
and-
something that you can kind of put your hands on pretty easily, since you are involved with
You
that.
have nothing else to do, Jeff.
Oh, right here? Oh, I got them.
Um,
Since I have nothing else to do, is that?
No,
what you-
no, because don't you guys develop those anyway?
Yeah.
So you might be able to put your hands on,
You mean to expand our list?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Because sometimes these are so pat and dry.
Yeah, there's some
Um,
that have like 2 pages of.
Oh, my goodness.
Mhm.
Then we take forever to get through it, so. 1 definitely. I it's number 3.
All right, 1 and 3.
There you go.
All right, I'll put it together and.
Thank
give you a
you.
draft.
Okay, we have no bond release reduction reports, right? No time extensions. Scott, you have agent activities report.
No,
No,
no.
Okay, moving on to enforcement. No deliberation. Administrative review and enforcement issues. We have the 3 that we discussed last meeting. I unfortunately was unable to get out and do any site walks. Was anybody?
I did.
You did?
I did. Millo, you could drive right past it.
You were supposed to call me. We were supposed to go together.
I'm sorry. Well, Millo, you could drive right by it. And actually, you do. You don't
Oh,
even need to get out of the car.
yeah,
Um,
have seen that.
Removed all the rubble that he took away, they took down, all that wall
He took it out?
remnants, it's gone. So,
Already buried.
and it is definitely in its form, it's going to be eventually, it looks like he's planning on just grading it right down to the river, or wetlands, whatever that is. So that was Millo, and I was a little, not concerned, what's the word I'm looking for? I was surprised to see that the rubble was gone. I mean, he continued to work after he came in before us. And the other one, the Garter Road ones, they look just like the pictures. The one on,
let's do one at a time. Tell
I'm
me.
sorry.
Yeah, because I have to
Oh, what are we doing?
recuse myself from discussions on Mahalkas.
Okay, all right, so Millo, did we just want to do one at a time then, that way? Okay. So it looked to me, I had a question for you. Was that part, that wall, was part of the original building that was a condition of approval, that wall was there? And that was part, that's not a conservation easement or anything, right? It doesn't
No.
appear to be.
It
But it
was,
appeared to be the edge of the limit.
it appeared to be the edge of the limits of the original.
Okay. So it looked to me like the wall should be put back.
Mm.
I don't know what it was created, I mean, the pictures showed cinder block and rocks and, I don't know how it looked when he had it there. But it looks to me like it wouldn't be a hard thing to just cut a swath through the dirt and put the wall back.
What would be the benefit of having the wall back?
Is what was originally planned.
I understand.
If you don't put the wall back, he's just gonna grade it right down into the
Lois,
wetlands.
let me ask you, do you think that the area that beyond the wall, the area that was disturbed beyond the wall, do you think there's any potential that area had wetlands?
I thought that was the biggest deal. Did he fill up those wetlands? Or did somebody, not him, because he had just bought the house, right?
So I guess what I'm getting at is, do you want him to have a soil scientist determine where the wetlands are? Because if anything, it was filled. You want the wetlands, I guess that's the first question. You guys want the wetlands determined?
It's probably a good idea.
I haven't gone out there to see it myself, so I just drove by it.
That's what I did too, because it was during you know what happened? Clark had called me, he was off on Monday, and he said, you want to walk these things, and we never did do.
And you have to call this guy before we go, or?
Well, that was what he wanted us to do, if we're gonna walk the property.
you?
If we're not gonna walk. I did contact him, I texted him actually, and he wasn't gonna be around until after 5 o'clock. Well, I wasn't gonna be there after 5 o'clock, so it was like, okay, I have to drive by and see
Oh,
when
I
it's
see.
on my schedule.
You want to just
So,
postpone it until the next meeting?
You guys think you
Well,
can?
are we
I
gonna,
can get there, yeah.
are we gonna,
If he doesn't have to be there.
Well, if we don't have to walk on his property, I mean, you can actually go into the cemetery, I think.
Oh, you see the drop off? He was talking about a drop off where you finished excavating and then it was like a 6 or 7 foot drop to the wetlands.
That was in the rear, more toward the other part.
That you can't see from the road, I don't
You
think.
can't see that from the road.
No, so, I mean, it would probably be of definite benefit to contact the guy and walk it with him.
Let's postpone. Because I meant to get out there, I just couldn't. And, I hope to be able
Next
to
time I'll
do.
call you. I'm sorry.
Because I have a suspicion that
chastised.
you're gonna wanna walk the other two as well, if Lois is the only one that looked at them, but. All right, so we know what you're doing on this one. What do you wanna do on the other two?
So do I need to leave the room?
These
It's
are,
not
Why do you say
Not
these
an
are,
application.
Because I have to
He's
recuse
recusing.
myself.
these
From
are
the house.
not,
I mean, I know Wayne. Does that mean I have to too?
Well, he's my dentist, so I can't.
He's
You know.
not my.
Actually, if
but
you
I've
feel
known him
that
for a
you can
long
be
time.
impartial,
yeah, just because he's,
Just because you do business
it's a
with
small
them
town,
does
everybody
not
knows
mean you
everybody.
have to.
Yeah, but
But if
you
feel
doing
like-
business is a little different than
Okay.
just knowing,
You don't
like,
have to
in
explain.
town.
and,
If you're not
You don't have to
comfortable
explain.
with
If
it,
you feel like you
I
want
think
to
it's-
recuse, you can.
It's just
and
easier
even-
for me to.
and even if it's not a conflict, if you're uncomfortable with that, you know, you may not, he's your
Right.
dentist, you may not, you know, let me.
I want my
throw-
teeth.
What you did.
In my opinion, I'd like to look at it, and I have not been able to do so as of
Right.
yet.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I would like to continue
Okay.
both of these,
I
all
can-
three of these to our
I
next
can report what I
meeting.
did see.
I was only asking because I don't know, why you would, well, not you, why would anybody recuse himself,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
from a situation like this? I was asking you, does that mean I should too?
Oh,
Because
oh.
I've known him for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, it does put you in a position where you might treat him differently than you would treat somebody that you didn't know. If you thought that you could do it fairly and without bias.
I think Ross is asking, why would
Right.
anybody ever recuse? And it's, if you ever felt like
That's
it was
what-
putting yourself in an uncomfortable position and either you would feel
Or a
uncomfortable
conflict.
presiding, or
There's
there was a conflict of interest.
conflict, yeah.
Right.
And you don't have to say why. You can just say, I need to recuse
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
from this.
And remember, these aren't formal hearings,
Right.
but
When you
yeah,
have
it's
formal,
always
you could-
wise to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
And yes, if you do recuse, you typically would get up and leave the room.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you could still communicate through body language.
Daggers.
The inland wetlands.
All right, so we got word on that.
Okay.
Next item is
Oh,
under,
uh-oh, I forgot to give you guys copies of the minutes.
No, you didn't.
No,
all right, we're gonna postpone
Is that-
the
That's-
minutes.
I-
Because you forgot to give it to him?
Oh, no, this is the agenda.
oh,
Yeah, I did forget to.
We're gonna
give it.
postpone
So we're
anyway,
gonna-
right? Because
Yeah,
Table
postpone that
it.
too.
we have to anyway, right? Because Jeff wasn't here. So we couldn't vote on them anyway,
Oh,
right?
right,
Because we
I
don't
think
have
we
enough.
still vote on the minutes.
yeah, but
We motion to
that's-
approve, right?
it's all right.
All right,
We gotta
so,
wait till next meeting.
so the next item is under other that I wrote in, and basically, what this is an applicant or potential applicant came in to see me today about there's a unique situation where the town discovered through other means that a piece of property was sold off. There was an original large piece of property that had 2 houses on it, and they sold off one of the houses, but they didn't go through a subdivision process. They somehow just
What a
did it
mess.
and filed it with on the clerk's office, and the assessor's been taxing them for 2 lots, but it isn't a legal subdivision. So they're gonna go through a process with the zoning department to actually subdivide the property. But it's a subdivision with 2 older, very old, pre-existing houses on it. Both lots are fully developed. It was a farm, and they're fully developed with houses, garages, sheds, the whole works. And, but yet they're going through this re-subdivision process. And the question is, do they have to go out and delineate the wetlands? There's a little pond on the property, and there's a brook that goes, a swale that goes into the pond, and a brook that comes out of the pond. And so, do they have to spend the money to go out and delineate all the wetlands when they're not proposing to do anything? Normally, the concern would be, is this lot appropriate to build on? But they're saying they already built on it, they already have septic systems on it, everything's all done for the last 25 years. So do they have to spend that money on Or is their
I don't think
survey
so. Not
plan
for
just
me.
showing the pond and the brook okay for you?
I'm just thinking about future selling of the property and someone coming in saying subdivision with the lines as is. We can always require new delineation at that point, but I'm just thinking about that. I don't
Yeah.
wanna have them do that, I'm just thinking,
Like, I was trying to think through, normally you'd say, well, we don't want that property line there because it's not practical, because you can't build, it doesn't leave enough room for a pool, or you can't build that, and I was trying to think of a scenario where where it would
Well, it
affect
matter.
what they want to do. And I
can't think
couldn't
of any.
come up with one, because even if the line goes through, the line is very close to the pond. Even if it went through the pond, what difference does it make, because both lots are developed already?
Right.
So that's what I was, because I had the
How
exact
big are
same
the lots?
response to him, and my knee-jerk
It was
response
only
was,
one lot,
oh, what
right?
about the
Two lots.
future? And
It's 2 lots.
and then I thought, well,
It was
just like
one
you,
lot.
that if they come in for anything, we're gonna ask them to delineate the wetlands before they get the shed permit.
How'd they
or
go
Okay,
to
so-
March?
I'm sorry, Lois.
I'm sorry, I stepped on you.
So if it's gonna come in as an application,
It's gonna come in as only a subdivision referral.
referral, and can we put conditions on that referral and say,
No, a subdivision referral doesn't have conditions because it's not an approval.
Right.
It's just a comments that you send to the planning and zoning.
okay,
committee.
so what if so it's in the record,
So you could
one of the
send,
comments
you could
is,
send a comment that says, you would like the subdivision map to have a note on it that says that, any future development, will require delineation of wetlands. You can ask for a
sounds
note
good.
like that.
that's,
Right, so
That's
you'll
exactly
deal with it
where-
when it comes to you,
Yeah.
but they don't have to do
Yep.
the wetlands. All right, one more question
I'm
about
good with
it.
that, you guys.
Is-
Yeah.
Lois may help, or I guess anyone can possibly answer this too. Subdivision referrals, they're not regulated activity,
Right.
so it's not a question of whether it's a public hearing or not.
No, we don't usually ask for public input on subdivision referrals.
No, not, well, if most subdivisions include regulated activity, so it's a moot issue, they're public hearings.
Right.
But if this is just a subdivision that has no regulated activity, it wouldn't be a public hearing,
No.
right?
Well, we could make a determination that we don't believe it's a significant impact activity, and we don't believe that it's in the public interest to.
Yeah,
have
okay,
a
so that's a
public
determination that you'll make when the application comes in.
hearing. I think those are the two
I think you make,
considerations.
even if it's a subdivision referral, you're still making a determination?
Actually, the way the regs put it and the statutes put it is that you're not allowed to have a public hearing unless there is significant activity or if it's in the public interest.
right, you have-
Or a petition has been
Right, so
presented,
if
so
they
none
were,
of the above apply.
so if they were building a road and that was significant, then it would be a public
Yeah.
hearing? Okay, yeah, thanks for refreshing my memory on that, okay. So I'm good, I can give them direction and you'll be getting a new application on that.
Excellent.
I had a
So-
question for you at some point, and maybe general discussion or other, can I bring
Go ahead.
something up?
Sure.
So I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, there was something that the town was doing where there's an ongoing, as of right, not as of right, but a maintenance
A non-
permit, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, it was I think it was the Beavers?
Yeah,
Oh,
right. My concern would be just, and maybe this was discussed at the meeting, something to the effect of what is being done. Not that, hey, they're going out and, they're gonna remove a beaver dam or something, but, to me, there's minor things, maybe, like, okay, are they going through wetlands to get to the beaver dam? Are they taking the beaver dam and throwing it somewhere else?
So we
in
talked
the
about that a
wetlands?
little bit, and
This was,
what this is Ed Risco, he's our animal control officer, And
very
he has I think it's a license to deal with the
Yeah.
beavers as well.
And no, no, I didn't mean to
No, I'll explain.
look for information on that particular one, it's just globally, when they come in,
Well,
is there?
typically I do get you more, but
Yeah,
this,
okay,
this is fairly typical. What he does is, he goes out, it's by hand, there's no equipment. And he goes out to the dam and he brings a bunch of plastic pipes with him. And he somehow gets the pipes pushed through the dam area. I guess he picks enough of it away, and pushes the pipe through. They don't typically take the dam down, because the beaver will just redo it. So he puts a couple of pipes in, and he puts plugs in them, and he'll open up one or two of them. And then a week later, he goes back, and he'll open two different ones, and then plug up those two, because the beaver, they
Here's the
sense
flow
the
in water.
flow of water,
Yeah.
and they'll plug them up again.
Yeah.
And then there's a certain time of the year where he can trap them. And the trapping involves, there's a license for the trapping.
Right.
He traps them, and once they're trapped, they're killed.
He
Yeah.
at one point,
They're not allowed to.
You can't relocate them.
in this particular instance, that we, at one point, had a pretty thorough presentation on that.
Yeah.
So, and that was when I was here, and I think me and you were probably the only ones that were here when that happened.
I think I
and-
have the CD.
And someone explained exactly what it was, and so I think that what happens in those kind of things is it comes kind of standard, like
Yeah.
twice a year.
Yeah.
This comes up and he does it, and so Scott probably was like, he's gonna do the beaver thing again, and
Right.
everybody's like, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Got it.
I
usually,
think
there,
I
at
have
one point, there was more detail about what it was, but he doesn't, Scott's right, I don't remember if he came or Scott
I
just
think
gave that.
he came, and so did the Public Works Director.
Maybe, and they explained and they showed exactly, like he brought a piece of the pipe, he's like, I shoved it into the thing like this, and he showed us.
It's a real problem.
It's a real problem. Remember, it was, because we had a couple of residents that were having tremendous problems.
Oh, we.
Yeah, what happens is
flooded.
the water
The
builds
septic
up,
system
and
was
it
being
starts to
flooded
go
out.
into their septic areas. And so they come in and complain. Now, this one, they also wanted they wanted the town to do cosmetic work in the open space next to their property, and we said, we're not gonna do that. The trees fell down in the storm, and unfortunately, that's open space, and they're ugly, but they've gotta sit there. Unless they petition the town, and the town approaches the commission and says, we wanna do X, Y, Z, and they'd have to get a permit to do that. I'm not aware of that happening though, so.
Well, to Jeff's point though, when you go to Gardner Road, look right across the street. There's obviously been a lot of excavation done by the town because there's an enormous pile of, I'm gonna call it detritus because it looks like it was just dug out.
You're talking about
It's right
with
where
the
the,
ponds on both sides?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
that historically, 11 years ago when I came here, that was
it's
that
almost
way.
13 now,
and
you
it-
know.
13?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. They've been doing that, so maybe at some point, next time they say they're gonna work on that, you might
Yeah.
want them to come before you, because,
be
yeah, you're right,
interesting to know,
it's a mess
because-
there.
it is. And I understand the problem though, because when the culverts back up, Gardner Road disappears. So it's a problem. But on a different note, it's all over the papers and everything that Discovery Zone is building a new pavilion
Yeah,
in the middle of a pond.
no, it's,
There was a picture of it in the paper, and
Pavilion's-
it's like, it's on stanchions and it's
there's.
in the
there's-
water.
The pavilion's nowhere near the wetlands, nowhere near wetlands.
Okay, good.
As you go in the parking lot,
That was just the picture I was,
as you go in the parking lot,
mhm.
there's a big pine tree that's.
Oh, yeah, I
right
know
in-
where
It's
the,
going right next to that.
okay,
That's
okay,
like
good.
in the.
You're right, though,
That's
that
great.
picture does look like it's, and I thought I knew where they were putting that.
And there, does it say that they're putting? Does it say they're putting?
It doesn't say that they were putting it in pond, but the picture.
The picture
Oh.
looks like they're putting it out by that, you know where they have
You're
that
sure
little
it isn't
boardwalk?
just a?
Of the gazebo?
Oh, it's being donated.
Yeah,
Oh, so it's
Charlie
Robert-
Edgerton is donating.
right.
So I have a suspicion that I have to see it, but I think what they did was they took a
Was it the
picture.
Courier, wasn't it?
Was it an actual picture?
Yeah,
Yeah, so.
I mean, I
so
wouldn't make
it's
that
from
up
somewhere
now.
else. It's from somewhere else. They
Okay,
took a picture
all right, that's
and they
fine,
showed it.
that's great.
No, it wasn't a photo, it was a drawing of what they were
Oh,
gonna do.
it was
And-
a
and
drawing.
Yeah. that's
I gotta
very
be
nice.
honest with you, Scott, it looked to me like they were doing a water exhibit.
No, it's nowhere near water, so I don't understand that. That doesn't make any
Okay,
sense.
well, if that's the case, I mean, I'm all for it, but I know Tom we've been back and forth with Tom.
There's no body of water there anyway.
Oh, yes, there is.
There's 7 vernal pools
Way
or
in-
something.
Way back,
We're
right.
back, yeah.
And
This is out-
there's a boardwalk that goes almost into that water.
This is out by the parking
Okay.
lot.
Then there's one that's being buried, but being sunk by water now, did you notice? Have you been
No.
back there lately?
I was there 2
I
months
think it
ago, I
was the
sat
one
on
that
that
John
one.
Kimball's son built, and the walkway to it, that was now underwater.
Okay. All right, is there anything else for the good of the order?
Yeah, there was no permit for it because it wasn't in any regulated area.
Okay, that's fine, then, that's great.
Okay.
No,
Okay, well,
then move to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Spence, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any
Wait a
abstentions?
second, Ross?
Yep. Wasn't quite 9:30.
Motion passes unanimously. Means adjourned.